All right, so today I am a free man. For the last 16 months, I have been a hostage by my own choosing to a very talented but unpredictable actress. And she was supposed to be here today. She said she would be, but she's not. And for that reason, I just want to take off the table any questions about Lindsay Lohan's personal life. We don't have much time, and I don't want to deal with those questions or answer them, and we won't. So that we would talk about her work in the film or work as an actress, but not as a public personality. Well, I mean, Brett and I are a generation apart. I first met him many years ago because he was a fan of American Gigolo, and I was a fan of Less Than Zero. So, we're not on the same page, but we're in the same book. And so that kind of worked out, and we were going to do a film that fell apart, and I just, with the new economics of filmmaking, I just suggested to Brett that he write something, I direct it, and we pay for it, and we make it. And that's how it began. Well, part of the challenge, the fun, was not only to make this film with Brett, but to discover whether such a thing was even possible, particularly possible by me. Could I make a film under the new model, whereby it is financed, it is cast, it is crewed, it is promoted, and it is distributed through social media. And we were able to do that. And so that was part of the buzz of actually doing it. I don't think that buzz would be there the second time around. I would feel the weight of the lack of money more than I did on this first trip, because part of the fun was, hey, we don't have any money. We don't pay for things. We don't pay for permits. We don't pay for hair, makeup. You do your own wardrobe. You do your own transportation. The very first email I sent to Brett suggesting we do this, I said, let's make cinema for the Post Theatrical Era. And I sensed that we were moving out of the theatrical era primarily and into the multi-platform era. And so I wanted to make very clear to the audience that this film was made for VOD. It was made for multi-platforms because the movie theaters are closed. And so if I didn't hammer that home, people would say, "Oh, the movie went out straight to, video." Well, it was meant to go straight to video. And the other reason I used that, the first cast reading we had, I described the film. Well, I think I put this in the thing. I described it as a bunch of 20-something Los Angelinos who go out to see a movie, but the theater has closed, but they stay in line because they have nowhere else to go. In that sense of they're doing something that they really don't even hardly believe in anymore. They're making movies, but they don't really like movies. Lindsay is a fearless actress. One of her problems as an actress is that she has a very hard time faking things, and so she gets herself up into the moment in a way that's exhausting for her and for people around her. So what you see on screen is very close to genuine, because this is her first really hard kind of straight role as opposed to romantic comedy, and she stepped up to the mark, but it was an exhausting process. Yeah, I mean, I wrote a little thing comparing Lindsay to Marilyn Monroe, not as an actress because they're completely different, but as someone who just really has a hard time separating the professional and the private. My favorite scene of Lindsay's is when we do the handheld scene and she just comes in and starts carving Christian up. And, that's really, I told Lindsay that was her Anne Margaret scene, just to really, play it tough. And so that's my favorite scene of hers. In the 70s, there was a kind of dream that there would be a crossover film that was both explicit and a solid film. I think that dream was a false dream, and I don't think that crossover film will ever occur, and I made that decision before making this film. I think the part of our brain that responds to explicit imagery is a different part of our brain than responds to long-form narrative. And I think these two impulses work at cross purposes, and I don't think anybody will ever succeed in making a long-form narrative that also has explicit imagery, because the brain doesn't want to see that movie. Yeah. I'd like to ask Tennille a question. You know, apart from James and Lindsay, who came through personal contacts, the rest of the movie was cast on the web through a website called Let It Cast. We got 650 auditions, and one of those was Tennille's. And so, how did you come to?
Word of mouth. I'd heard about the film and that they were casting and who was attached, you know, Paul and Brett. And I went online, and funny enough, you see these casting sites all the time, and usually they're, you know, not that legit. They don't have amazing people attached. They're ultra low budget, but they're films that you can't look up the director, or if you do, they have a personal message and it's just creepy. And I feel like it's really starting to change now, especially with this film. When I saw it and saw who was attached, I upload my video, and I think that was kind of the coolest thing, to actually have it go through and have it end up working out like this. You can see other people's auditions, you can comment, and it's a whole new world for acting.
I mean, the film business is undergoing a systematic change. Not systematic, systemic change. Everything we know from the past doesn't apply. It's not that cinemas will go away, but they will just assume a place in a spectrum of distribution possibilities for film. And you know, over the last century, cinemas have controlled, the physical theaters have controlled the idea of motion pictures, and then that era is now coming to an end. I mean, we are a pretty polarizing bunch. Lindsay polarizes just about everybody, and who she doesn't, Brett does. And the idea of James crossing over upsets a number of people. I'm the least polarizing of the bunch. I'm not used to that. I'm used to, I'm used to being the polarizing guy. So, you know, we're used to pushing buttons, and it would be facetious to say that we were somewhat surprised by the intensity of some reactions.